Today we need to have a conversation about who is truly the Honor One in the Jujutsu Kaisen series. Enlightenment and Ascension are major themes within the series, and by default, people automatically think when you talk about enlightenment and ascension in the series that you're talking about Satoru Gojo. It is understandable because of the hidden inventory arc. In this arc, Gojo was killed, and when he was on the verge of death, he found the core of curse energy, which allowed him to use reverse curse technique to heal himself and come back and fight Toji. Gojo was in the moment feeling himself, and he floated up in the sky and said, "Throughout the heaven and earth, I alone am the Honor One," quoting the Buddha. But today I'm here to argue that Gojo isn't the Honor One. He wasn't enlightened and he didn't ascend. The only character in the Jujutsu Kaisen series that can be called the Honor One is Sukuna. To completely understand why Gojo isn't the Honor One, he isn't enlightened and he didn't ascend and it's actually Sukuna, you have to understand what it means to be enlightened. In some traditions, enlightened individuals may display signs of a sense of inner peace and a lack of attachment to material possessions or ego. Enlightened individuals' level of thinking has surpassed the basic thought process of humans and are able to look at everything that happens with a godlike mind. Throughout history, people who were known to be enlightened were sought after by individuals who were lost and needed answers to their questions to help them ascend or go to the next level. Using their inner peace, the enlightened individual is able to tap into ancient knowledge and a deeper understanding of life and convey it to individuals in a godlike manner. This is why no matter what religion you look into, there was always an enlightened individual that helped build the foundation of that religion or philosophy. So let's rewind back to that statement that Gojo made in the hidden inventory arc. In the interview, the author, Gege, stated that Gojo was just feeling himself, just being the cocky person that he usually is. This means Gojo really isn't the Honor One in the series. It was just something he said in that moment. Still, Gojo is a multifaceted character and we love him regardless of what anybody has to say. There's multiple themes and elements and factors that you have to talk about when you talk about Gojo. But being enlightened isn't one of them. Gojo was never sought after for his knowledge about anything. Yes, we see him helping Yuji and Megumi throughout the series, but Gojo really wasn't a teacher. Love him to death though. And Gojo also wasn't able to pass that line to ascend to the next level. Gojo struggled with the idea of being lonely and solitude, and he wasn't able to let go of the concept of love, which is all things that Sukuna was able to let go of that allowed him to transcend to the next level. Gojo's struggle with solitude, loneliness, and love was showcased in chapter 236. In this chapter, it starts off with Gojo being in the afterlife and explaining to Geto how he wanted to show Sukuna what love is, and also that he understands the loneliness and solitude of being the strongest. But Gojo made a mistake, thinking that loneliness and solitude are interchangeable. But we're going to circle back to that. I want to continue to harp on this concept of Gojo being infatuated with love. Leading up to the fight, we kept seeing inner dialogue with Gojo saying, "Hey, I'ma show you what love is." Also chose the most romantic day in Japan to fight Sukuna. The concept of love is the biggest weakness for modern day Jujutsu sorcerers, and this is something that we covered on this channel in the video, The True Meaning of Love in the Jujutsu Kaisen series, so check that out. We've seen this statement come up several times from different ancient sorcerers. One from Uraume, when she was fighting Hikari, she said that modern day sorcerers want to hold on to their humanity. One of the components of being a human is being able to express and receive love and to show empathy. This takes us to the Sendai colony fight and the conversation that Uro had with Yuta at the end of the fight. On page 5, chapter 181, Uro says, "You're reaching your limit and I've seen it. What surpasses the horizon of sorcerers, cursed spirits, and strong fighters is a overwhelming aggression that disregards all else, like a calamity." And then she continues to call Yuta soft. But in that moment, we see a picture of the true form of Sukuna, reiterating that Sukuna has ascended and he is truly the Honor One when it comes to Jujutsu sorcery. And finally, the conversation with Kashimo and Sukuna in the afterlife. Sukuna basically explains to Kashimo that his weakness was that he was too concerned with love and understanding what other people feel. Sukuna continued to drop knowledge on Kashimo's head in the afterlife. Tells Kashimo that many fierce fighters challenged him with all their strength and spiritual might. They wanted Kashimo's recognition so they can assess their worth. But Kashimo killed them all. While he was killing his challengers, Kashimo was thinking about how to treat others with care, and Sukuna basically tells him, if that isn't love, then what is? This was Sukuna's way of telling Kashimo that he understands that question that Kashimo was asking himself throughout his lifetime. It may sound extreme, but when Sukuna kills, he's doing it out of love to give that challenger the recognition that they wanted. And this isn't a reach. Think about any time Sukuna has defeated anybody, Kashimo, Jugo, the list goes on. He always gives them some type of recognition at the end of it. But we're going to pause here and circle back to this conversation because it's that important in understanding why Sukuna is truly the honored one. Because Sukuna's understanding of solitude is what allowed him to ascend and elevate to the next level. If you remember at the beginning of the video, I said the reason why Gojo wasn't truly the honored one and why he didn't ascend to the next level was because he didn't understand what true love was in Jujutsu, and he didn't understand the difference between loneliness and solitude. On page 4, chapter 236, Gojo says the absolute strongest, the loneliness that follows, the one who will teach you about love is. Gojo associated his loneliness with absolute strength. He assumed that Sukuna was alone, just like Yurozu. Which is funny because Sukuna said that Kashimo, Gojo, and Yurozu would have had a great conversation if they met each other because they're so obsessed with the concept of love. Gojo made this association with loneliness and true power because he was the strongest in the modern era, so he felt alone. But there's a clear difference between loneliness and solitude, which was explained by the legendary Japanese swordsman Miyamoto Musashi. Musashi understood that humans live to connect. Solitude can feel counterintuitive to a regular person, which makes people fear solitude and associate it with loneliness. Loneliness is the emotional distress of feeling isolated and rejected. That's why Gojo was so obsessed with showing Sukuna what love is, because he felt like being the strongest comes with loneliness, but no, it actually comes with solitude. Solitude is being alone but not being lonely. It's a positive and constructive state of mind for engagement with oneself. It's a mindset of finding periods to go into a quiet place within yourself. To Musashi, it's a conscious decision and choice. This is the difference between the Chad Sukuna and the V-card Gojo. Gojo feared the concept of loneliness, while Sukuna embraced solitude. Let's go back and finish the conversation between Sukuna and Kashimo. Sukuna says others love us for our strength and respond to that love, yet solitude troubles you. That's why I called you greedy. Sukuna's basically saying is that you became the greatest of all times of your era, but you didn't expect solitude to follow you. Because once you become one of the greats, you're going to be at a level that most people won't be able to obtain. Think about LeBron James, Kobe Bryant, Michael Jordan. How many people can say they ever reached the heights of those basketball players? Not many. But they continue to embrace that solitude and continue to work at their craft and get better, just like Sukuna. Sukuna continues to tell Kashimo that love is worthless, and he never needed anybody to satisfy him. He eats what he wants, he fights who he wants, and he kills whoever he pleases. And he's going to continue to live that type of until he dies, showcasing why Sukuna is actually enlightened and he transcended the human realm. But there's more. Narratively speaking, Sukuna is described as the one sorcerer that surpassed his limits and transcended to a higher form. His body is next level, extra arms and mouths, making him the perfect Jujutsu sorcerer. So many sorcerers seek out Sukuna so they can test out their strength and gain his recognition. Sukuna doesn't need anyone to satisfy him, and he doesn't care about what's right and wrong. He's surpassed that level of thinking because he's truly enlightened. But more importantly, anytime Sukuna faces off against another sorcerer or kills another sorcerer, he always gives them the knowledge that they were missing. $1 million worth of game. This whole video, we discussed the conversation between Sukuna and Kashimo. After Sukuna killed Kashimo in battle, he basically answered every question that Kashimo had. Gave Kashimo the recognition that he deserved. Let's go back to Jogo versus Sukuna, where you see the clear difference between Sukuna, the enlightened one, and Gojo. When Gojo went against Jogo, all he did was express how weak Jogo was. But when Sukuna faced off against Jogo, in the afterlife, Sukuna gave Jogo the knowledge that he was missing. Sukuna states, "You should have burnt everything you desired to a cinder without thinking to reach the heights of Satoru Gojo and not worry about the the future or identity, but you lack the hunger to take hold of your desires. And at the end of that rant, he says his iconic phrase, "Stand proud, you're strong," and Jogo begins to cry. Sukuna gave him the recognition, that same recognition that he explained in detail to Kashimo. You see a clear difference in how Sukuna handled Jogo and how Gojo handled Jogo. This is only because Sukuna was able to walk the path of solitude, allowing him to become enlightened in Jujutsu. So quick recap, what makes Sukuna enlightened? People seek him out for knowledge. He has ascended past humanity, becoming something like a calamity, and he embraces the path of solitude, and he no longer clings on to his ego or his life. Sukuna is fully prepared to die. And lastly, he keeps a baddie with him that cooks some good food and keeps his macros right. Gojo doesn't know anything about that. This makes Sukuna the true honored / enlightened one of the Jujutsu Kaisen series. So that's it for the video. Thank you for tuning in. Like, comment, and subscribe. I'm out.